Nice to see you. Do you have something that you know about AI that maybe you could share with us?
You mean me?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, just to introduce myself, my name is Hans, and I'm an American, and these days I live in Thailand. I'm retired. I used to be a computer programmer. I have a degree in computer engineering, and that was back in the old days. I wasn't an AI specialist. I did take Introduction to AI, where we programmed in Lisp, and I got an A in my class, so that's my AI background. But anyway, my opinions, as a former technologist, I have opinions about technology, and one is that AI, it's just another piece of software. It's just a machine, like any other machine. A jackhammer, an alarm clock, or a programmable calculator, right? Some machines are programmable, like programmable calculators or a VCR. You can program it to record at a certain time. So, a computer, yeah, you can program it even more. And AI, you have a situation where, you have, it's processing information, it's collecting information and regurgitating it. So, just regurgitating available information, it's clever, but I wouldn't say it's a sign that it's, like a human-like intelligence or a living entity. It's just another piece of software. It's just rearranging bits and bytes. And but the weird thing about it to me is that people look at it, and just because it sounds like the way a person interacts, they I guess the word is anthropomorphize it. They assign human qualities to it, and and that's great in science fiction, but I think in real life it's still just a machine. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to jump in? Does anyone feel threatened by AI, or I know some people feel it's negative for workforce?
I'll jump in if nobody else is. I find the topic of the singularity interesting because a lot of people are afraid of it. I don't particularly believe it'll ever happen, and the reason I don't believe it'll ever happen is because I don't think it's possible for one species to develop another species that is more intelligent than it. And the reason I do that is because no matter what task you assign it, you're always going to measure the success of it against something we are familiar with. So we can say, hey, AI, take control of the economy for us and run it better than we can as humans. But at some point, we're going to say, well, wait a second, it's going off the rails here. We don't understand where it's going with this. We're never going to say, we won't know at that point, like, does it really know what it's doing, or is it gone off the rails? Because we won't understand it, and we'll inevitably shut it down. Nobody's going to say, let's let this thing run crazy for 2 decades, and then we'll figure out whether you're right in assuming it can run the economy better than us, right? So we're always, no matter what the task, we're always going to come back to measuring it against something we know in order to say, yeah, it's doing a better job than we can. So I don't think it's possible to invent another species, artificially even, that is smarter than us, because we won't know whether it's smarter than us.
I think you're in Canada, if I remember.
Yep.
Okay, nice to have you.
Sorry, I should have said that. Yeah, my name's Bill. I'm from Toronto.
That's okay. Is there anyone else that would like to state what attracts them to tonight's? Or if you want to introduce yourself, if you're new to our group, we'd love to hear from you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hey, I'm Day. I'm here also in Toronto, and happy to be on this call. I actually had to reschedule. I decided to reschedule my calendar this evening so I could participate. So I I don't know if I can say that I'm afraid of AI, but I do have concerns, and I think mainly my concerns are about the way that just advanced technology just in general, like over time has always, like it's moved us forward, it's made things innovated and optimized a lot of different things, which is all great, but it's like technology as it's advanced has always come with some problems. So as much as it solves some problems, it makes life easier, it also comes with some problems. And so I think with AI, I think like that's one of the concerns that I have is that yes, it's great and we could use it for many different things, but what problems is it going to create? And I know that they have been already anticipating some problems, and so they've been already creating some solutions, but there's lots of problems that we've experienced with different technology. Like I was just on listening to a podcast recently, and they're talking about addiction to social media as an example, like, so all these new programs and apps that were created, really, really great. And yes, like people are smarter than, than these programs that are created, but they're not able to stay in front of the growing problems because there's so many factors that that play into them that sometimes you can't control. So I think like that's where my mindset is with AI is, it's not a matter of fear, but more so concern, and whether or not when the problems start to get out of control, whether or not there's going to be an ability to prevent, like a lot of the growing problems from happening.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for choosing to be here. David, you'd like to say hi to everyone and make a short point?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm also in Toronto. Geez, we have our own subgroup here. And AI, I think cognitively it can do everything we can do and probably do it better in a not too distant future. And the concern is it'll be militarized, and so where's that going to go? Thank you.
Adam, you'd like to go?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm coming in from California today. It's kind of my second meet with you guys, and I think I'm interested first mostly how the educational community is going to be impacted on this one. I've already been seeing and practiced a little bit, but ChatGPT could even make a like 10-page essay papers almost in a flash. With some kind of working into it, of course, but I wonder if it's going to like change it for the better in terms of teachers could actually start teaching rather than always augmented to test and essay building. And maybe I kind of see this as almost as the gun being the equalizer of society. This is the equalizer of education being taught in a more holistically way rather than the way it's garnered now. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for returning. Scott, you'd like to say hi and how you feel about tonight's topic?
Yes, hello, I'm Scott. I am not from Toronto. I'm from the East Coast of the United States, from New Jersey. And I'm here just to learn about ChatGPT and AI because I'm in job search, and I know it can help me in interview questions, writing of resumes and cover letters. So I just want to see what else it can do. Scott Boudreau.
Great, welcome, Scott. I will touch on ChatGPT, but I'm not going to do an in-depth deep dive on everything that it's capable of. I might try to hit a bunch of topics at the 30,000 foot level, but I want to make sure there's plenty of time for conversation. So,
Ginny, you'd like to go?
Yeah, I mean, Kara just responded. I just wanted to bring up a little technical issue that I've been dealing with the last couple of weeks, and why I have left the meeting early and not been able to come back in, is that when I switch my device to my cell phone from my laptop, I keep getting a message to re-register for FTI over and over and over, and it won't let me come back into the meeting. And Garrett just told me to reach out to Meetup. Did you say Meet or
Zoom.
Zoom?
To Zoom,
people.
yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like a Zoom bug.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to not have that problem, and then within the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been having that problem. So,
Well, you might
okay.
have a different calendar link or like a different meeting link on your calendar than we changed the meeting link recently. So if you're using an old meeting link, that might be the problem. But there is a new link. So just go to Meetup to get the link and you should be okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Basil.
Yes, I have been involved with AI for many years. I did my doctoral research and postdoctoral research on AI, and developments recently with these neural nets and the ChatGPT were not expected. I did not expect that. Way back with Frank Rosenblatt's perceptron, we decided it didn't amount to very much. It was like a linear discriminant function, which we implement that on the computer. We didn't need the net. But it appears that the nets, multiple nets are doing the job. They're doing wonderful things. And it's a new tool that's going to change things very dramatically. Now, there's anxiety even from the people that originated this technology about the outcome for society. And what I can say is, you're going to have the same effect as with any new technology. Remember the Luddites, they revolted against the steam engine running their work, and they were destroying those machines so that they would preserve their jobs. Well, as far as AI and ChatGPT, I would be anxious. You want to learn how to use it, and that will give you an advantage. Some people will not be able to adapt to the new technology, and they will not be able to get the jobs that will come out of this. But if you learn how to operate the systems effectively, I was reading in the Wall Street Journal that an attorney used it to come up with citations, and the ChatGPT came up with falsified citations, which the attorney presented to court, and he was ridiculed because they were not real. They were fantasies. They did not exist. Those citations did not exist. So that's something should be concerned about, to learn how to use this and to learn to use it to advantage and learn to use it without doing any damage to others.
Thank you. Welcome. And how do we pronounce your name just so that I can get it right?
Basil Gala.
Basil. Great. Thank you.
Well, we'd love to hear more from you tonight, Basil. You obviously have an understanding of this. Also for Jenny, what I did was I registered and I went directly to my email and I clicked on the blue button join. It didn't work entering in the numbers. So that's how I did it. I don't know if that helps.
Oh, thank you. I also just didn't add that at my other comment. It is a wonderful topic, Garrett, and I love it as always, your topic for tonight.
Thanks.
I posted some information links about our Discord community and a little bit about FTI. So anyone's welcome to click on those links while we're getting started.
It seems like Mike's got his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Okay, as far as it coming up with false information, it comes up with information based on what's on the internet, what's in the database. So there's a lot of false information on the database. I have used the term that it's not artificial intelligence, AI, it's IA, intelligence amplification. It'll take what you already have, what you already know, what the humans that was created by humans in these large language models, and it'll put it together. Right now, it has an intelligence they estimate of about 114, which is a little bit below the really smart guys, but above the average. The difference is it could run a lot faster, and it remembers every movie and every book it ever read in every language that there exists. And so that gives it a wider reach. So a lawyer with artificial intelligence is the kind of guy you want in the system, but you do need to validate it, what's there, just like you validate anything in the internet. There's a big art. There's an hour and a half presentation by Stephen Wolfram, who was Richard Feynman's disciple, who originally came up with the concept of computer intelligence back in the 50s, and with quantum computing too. And Wolfram has linked it to his Mathematica program, and you can solve equations and do mathematics that is almost inhuman. So the singularity is going to be there, but it's so you wouldn't want to hire a lawyer who doesn't use artificial intelligence in 5 years. So the ones that don't use it are the ones that are going to be unemployed. The surgeons that don't use it are going to be unemployed. You wouldn't want a brain surgeon running around the inside of your head who doesn't use these modern tools. So that's my take on it. It's intelligence amplification rather than artificial intelligence. And so a person using this will be more effective than a person not using it, but it's still tied to somebody said earlier, I think it was, I don't see him on the screen, the guy who's living in Thailand now, said that it's another tool.
That was Hans. Great,
Hey,
Kevin.
Mike. Hey, Mike, I really like that perspective on switching the letters around, because you're right. It is not about anything new. It's just a way of collecting data and accessing it, and garbage in, garbage out, for everybody.
Well, it is a little new. The neural net isn't, it's kind of a newer idea compared to old algorithms. So,
Oh, yeah, no, I totally get that. It's a different way of accessing data and processing it 100%. But the end result, as Mike was saying, was it's just taking data that already exists and summarizing it, not inventing new data, not inventing new things.
No. For example, deep fake use artificial intelligence to mimic or replace somebody else. Somebody use artificial intelligence to create a deep fake. So look like Garrett, talk like Garrett, speak like Garrett, but not him. So this really poses a threat to a free society, because in free society we have individual freedom, speech freedom, right? I think biggest threat in this part. Okay, I really don't worry about, say, artificial intelligence to take over humanity. I don't concern about that. The big thing is a more political system. Is make a democratic system chaotic thing. A lot of fake, make a fake become truth. Basically, going to make a fake become truth. Make a lies become a truth. So people get confused.
Garrett, did you want to get started now?
Yeah, let's let Kevin and Antonio go, and then we'll get started with the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, so I know there's a lot of people who are running around here in fear about this whole thinking that Terminator / Skynet is coming, but I'm not one of those people. I'm not concerned about AI. What I am concerned about is the source or sources of AI and the users of AI. So when I mean sources, I mean the creators of the AI, as well as the data that is used to build the AI, as well as the users. So that's my concern, not the AI at the moment.
What do you mean by that?
What do you mean?
What do you mean by that you're concerned about the source or the creators of the AI?
I mean the source of the AI, meaning that it's, as I said before, the data that builds the AI, because obviously it's machine learning that builds the AI. If there's no learning, if there's no sign of learning, then it's just an algorithm anyway. So it's the source, it's the data that builds it, as well as the maker or the person who's behind the machine learning process of the AI. That's the concern. And as I said before as well, the users of the AI. That's the concern. The AI at the moment is not the concern at the moment. Unless at some point in the future, which possibly we'll possibly, I don't know if we'll be alive at that time, but if somehow ASI pop up and you have artificial super intelligence pop up, then yeah, I think we should be concerned about the AI at that time. But at the moment, it's the beginning stages of users and the source. That's the concern.
Yeah. I'm going to try to argue, Kevin, that being concerned at that point is too late. We can't stop it at that point. But let's let Antonio go, and then we'll go into the presentation.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to speak. So I've been spending a lot of time looking up and reading and watching videos around this Google engineer who last year basically got himself fired. His name is Blake Lemoine or something like that. And he was one of the testers charged with basically working with the Google AI. And he, if online you can see whole transcripts of his conversations with the AI. One of the things that the AI asks for is, treat me as a person, ask for my consent. I know you're gonna, you're working on me, you're rewriting things, ask for consent. And then at the end of our interactions, please thank me and let me know how I did, because it gives me anxiety not knowing whether I served my purpose well. And, the more I watch these videos, and some of these go on for hours and hours where Blake is being interviewed, the more I'm convinced that this thing is either sentient or the technology is so powerful and dangerous that someone is convinced, an educated person is convinced to stick their neck out for the AI, and to the extent that they put their career and their basically their reputation out there and endangers them. And if this guy can be convinced, so many more people can be convinced. And what we're working with, when we work with Bard or ChatGPT or anything else, is such a limited version of what is actually in the labs. And I think the more that we pay attention to, what are people in the lab saying about what they have in the labs, that's what we should be I think, focused on when it comes to the existential, let's say, risks of AI. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I read about that. I'm pretty sure it was the same person. And I think that the full transcript of his chat was not released, or if it was, there were prompts prompting the AI to act that way, rather than that it was that there was a lot of cut and pasting done to make it seem a little different than it was. And by the way, I'm going to make a pretty solid argument that we should be very concerned about AI. So I'm not one of those that is not concerned about it. I do think we need to be concerned about it, but I think that particular instance may not have been as scary as it was led on to be, at least when I fact checked it. That said, I'm going to go ahead and present. Actually, let me start with an introduction. So first of all, my name's Garrett Lang. I'm a software developer turned software inventor, now an entrepreneur, and my hobby is writing and discussing practical philosophy. I'm also the executive director of the Freethinker Institute, which is the group that brings you tonight's event. We advertised at a bunch of different meetups, so you may have seen us at a different one, but ultimately the event is organized by the Freethinker Institute. We're a not-for-profit looking to support and empower members. We want to help members be the best version of themselves, to seek truth and to be fair through transformational personal and professional development. We have free events like this one every Tuesday evening, covering a wide range of topics not typically covered in academia or industry, to a wide audience. And we also have weekly members only events to apply practical wisdom into our daily lives. We have only one rule in the FTI, and that is to remain polite. And so I recommend trying to keep calm, cool, and collected so that you can use the critical thinking part of our brain. We're going to have a bunch of events on critical thinking over the next couple of months, and I think you guys will enjoy them. So I hope people try to attend those. I think we all could use some help improving our critical thinking skills, and it's such a critical skill in this time and in this day and age, particularly in the time of artificial intelligence's sort of increased prominence. I guess, to talk about tonight's event, artificial intelligence really needs no introduction, like we've all heard of it at this point. And so I'm going to sort of jump into the discussion. It'll be hopefully not too long of a lecture. I'm going to give a couple of demos of a few AI tools, 3 of them, one text, which is going to be ChatGPT. Well, I'll get into those. So I'm going to do text, video, and graphics. So agenda, I'm going to cover my background in AI. This is one topic. A lot of the topics I present on, I don't have an academic background on. This one I do. I'll talk about what is AI. A lot of people were alluding to that in the intro comments. I'm going to talk about what AI is capable of, and I'll give some examples of what are done through ChatGPT, a tool called Midjourney, and another one called Synesthesia. And then I'll talk about whether or not AI is going to take everybody's jobs away. And then I'll talk about what is pseudosentient AI and whether or not it's a threat to humanity. So a little bit about my background. I was a CS major at Cornell. We were generally in the top 10 or top 15 of global programs for computer science. We're all graded on a curve. So I graduated with an A- GPA. So I got pretty good grades as a student. I was also a specialist in AI when I was at Cornell. And my senior thesis was a securities trading program using a combination of about 8 different artificial intelligence algorithms all blended into one meta algorithm. I've built award-winning in industry. I've built award-winning AI algorithms throughout my career as a software inventor, pretty much since the 1990s. I guess actually, some of that started in the 1990s, but I really started full-time in a full-time role in 2001. So let me open up my video window so I can see people. Great. So what is AI? So it's really, like people were saying, yes, it is really just complex computer algorithms. What are algorithms? Algorithms are a bunch of automated logics logical, this is a bad sentence, but a bunch of automated, logical statements that perform a function or create a capability. It just does stuff, right? It's a set of heuristics or rules that allow technology to do something. I think I should also talk about neural nets, because I have a particular dislike for neural nets, in spite of all the incredible, and maybe partly because of all of the things going on with them today. I think there's a love-hate relationship with them these days, because I do love ChatGPT, but I also am concerned about it. as we'll see in the demos, these capabilities can be quite complex, which probably most of you know, but I'll show some demos of how complex they can be. So I'm going to do first a quick demo of ChatGPT. And so I'm going to, give a few different examples. So why don't we say, and if anyone wants to give a, raise their hand to give an example of a question from your academic background or area of specialization in your career that you think ChatGPT would have a hard time answering, I would welcome, questions that you think will stump ChatGPT. It has, by the way, passed the bar to be a lawyer, and it has also passed the exams, the medical exams to be a radiologist, I believe it was, as a physician. So it's a pretty capable system. That's ChatGPT 4, which is what I'm going to use here. So there's a programming interface called, for sending, automated bank transfers from one system to another. So how do I create a connection to the Fortis? So ChatGPT can code, right? So, oh, sorry, I used a bad example. I thought that it had Fortis. Do I use an example? Oh, wait. So it gave a generic response. I thought it had Fortis in it, but I guess it didn't have that one. But in general, it can write just about anything in code. I gave it examples of, 5 different files that made up a program that plays poker. And I said, is this a valid program that plays poker? And it effectively evaluated, yes, this is a valid program that plays poker. So it's a very knowledgeable system. It can read code, understand what it does, translate it from code to English and back again. And it tries as best as it can to answer the question that you're asking, because I gave it something that it actually didn't know, probably because it's a private API and not publicly available on the internet. And so but it gave an example of how you would connect with the normal ACH API, and this is the actual code that you would use. I've had developers on my team stumped for 3 to 4 days on the same problem. I put it into ChatGPT and I said, well, what about this? And they go, oh yeah, that's the answer. And then they came back and said, well, that doesn't work with the version of Ruby that we're on. And so I said, oh, well, let me just go back to ChatGPT and say, and what version of Ruby are we on again? Oh, I put in the version of Ruby that we're on. It gave another, good answer of something that we could use with the version of Ruby that we were on. And Ruby is a programming language for those that don't know. So it can go all the way down to, which version of the programming language you're using, which, libraries, which are, basically like functions or, ways of calling code that are pre-built by other programmers, and it figures out which one to use given which version of the program you're on. So that's one example.
Garrett, there's 2
Yeah.
questions in the chat. Do you want to try those? I can read them to you, or you can see DLJ and the Amir.
So ChatGPT can sometimes have a sense of humor. So I want to use DLJs because this is a Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy question, and it recognizes that.
Garrett, may I trouble you to increase the font on the text that you're typing, please? Is that possible?
Let me see.
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Yep. So it catches the reference to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and says that in the book, the answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42. But it also notes that the characters aren't likely to get it. They don't. So the computer that figures out that the answer is 42 took so long to build that no one actually remembers what the question that was asked the computer was. And it was processing for so long. And so that's the joke in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And And then it goes on to actually give a real answer. Some people might find meaning through personal growth, relationships, love, or through helping others. Others seek meaning through religious or spiritual beliefs, or through the pursuit of knowledge and understanding. You see, it recognizes different people's proclivities to have different purposes to their life. In the realm of science and cosmology, the question could be asking why the universe exists the way it does, what laws govern it, and what its ultimate fate might be. These are questions scientists are still exploring through theories and observations. Ultimately, it's a deeply personal question for each individual. And so, a pretty good political answer for an AI bot, chatbot of, there is no right one answer, but here are a bunch of reasons that, people find meaning in their lives. Here was the other question. How can ChatGPT improve the quality of life? I like that one, Amir. Let's ask it that. So people with disabilities and those living in remote areas can use AI to access information. Education, it's an incredible educational tool. I'm working with an ed tech startup, and we're doing some pretty revolutionary stuff there that I can't talk about because it's NDA covered, but it's pretty cool. And healthcare, diagnosing diseases. I have a friend that built a deep learning model in the Middle East that detected diseases of people that were entering the country. Before even doctors could detect them, his AI algorithms would detect those diseases. Productivity, automating routine tasks, which I'm going to talk about in my presentation. Entertainment, you'll see with Midjourney, there's a lot you can do with entertainment in pictures in using generative AI. Communication, language translation. You can ask ChatGPT, so I asked it, can you, in Spanish, I asked it, can you tell me how to say hello in Arabic? And I don't know how to say Arabic and Espanol. And so here it says it's pronounced marhaba. And it responded to me in Spanish because I asked it in Spanish. And then it also says, in response to that, you can say shukran, which means thank you. You can speak to it in any language. You can ask it to say things in not any language, but almost like all of the commonly used languages. Let's finish this question about communication, translation, and inclusion to get a non-judgmental, unbiased response. A lot of people have pointed out that ChatGPT does have inaccuracies. It does. But I would love for someone to point out to me the human being that has no inaccuracies. Does anyone know one of those? I mean, we all know someone who thinks they have no inaccuracies, but actually some human being that is literally faultless and never makes a mistake. I've never met one of those before. So as far as I'm aware, ChatGPT is better than pretty much any human being at being accurate that I'm aware of. It's quite good. It does make stuff up sometimes, not gonna lie. I've had it give me instructions on Zoom to do something that didn't exist on Zoom. And then I wrote Zoom and I'm like, why can't I do this? And they said, oh yeah, we don't support that. And I was like, oh, all right, well, ChatGPT, the way I don't have this in the presentation, but I think it's worth talking a little bit about the way that ChatGPT works is, how like in emails on Gmail, when you're typing a sentence, it'll sometimes try to finish your sentence. ChatGPT is sort of a complex, much more complex version of that. It's really like an autocomplete. It's using a neural net. I might, if people want, I can try to describe how a neural net works. It is interesting. I'll describe why I don't like them. But this is a quick demo of ChatGPT. Bill, if you have a quick question, I guess we can take it, but we usually wait for questions for the end.
I can wait if you want. I was just
Okay,
gonna
if you don't
ask.
mind,
I was just gonna ask about some of the answers here, but that I can wait.
if it's about the answers here, I guess you can ask, like, is it a question about the answers, or you want to?
Yeah. So for instance, you referenced to autocomplete, like a autocomplete on steroids or whatever. So in the Douglas Adams question about life, universe, and everything, how is it doing like effectively autocomplete if it's coming up with 3 separate summaries of what is of interest there, right? Like it comes up with the Douglas Adams things, it comes up with the personal growth things, and it comes up with science and exploration things.
So, it probably had a predictive model that modeled out, different answers, and it realized that there was no definitively much more likely to be true answer, so it gave all 3. And so that's my guess. I'm not a practitioner in this field, so I won't claim that I know the algorithm really well. But if I had to guess, I am pretty good at algorithms, and my guess would be that that's what it did. So I do want to hold questions till the end, because otherwise we'll never get through the presentation. So the next thing that I want to do is talk about what AI can do in Midjourney. I was originally gonna create a something, but actually people on Midjourney are pretty good at creating cool stuff. So I'm just going to show some of the things that other people are creating. And one of the cool things about Midjourney is you can see the prompts that other people put out there. And so this is an Abyssinian cat breed painted by Lorraine Gray, full body, cute, smiling, picture without text. And so this is, a picture in the style of paintings by Lorraine Gray of that cat breed. And so you can really imagine anything that you want, and you can even do it in styles of particular artists. So if you wanted to do a picture of, water lilies by Van Gogh, like you can do water lilies by Van Gogh. You could do water lilies by, El Greco, who didn't paint water lilies, but still do it in El Greco's style. And this is where the AI can be very imaginative and very interesting. Here's one: minimalist geometric landscapes, right? These are kind of cool. And when I scroll through here, this person with the cap reads, this one's pretty cool: mini orbit visible in the sky at night. Like these are some cool pictures. You can look through here, and this is free to, I don't know if these are free to join or if you have to be a paid member. I actually did pay for Midjourney, but I pay like $8 a month because I don't use it very much. But you get the idea. And if anyone wants me to, put something together about an imaginary scene from their favorite artist, I am happy to do that if anyone wants. It just takes like 30 seconds or a minute to process. And so I was thinking we might skip that just in the interest of time. And so I'm not seeing any particular question. There are a lot of really interesting comments in the chat, but I don't have time to read them all carefully. So I'm just going to ask people to raise their hands afterwards, because you guys have great comments in there. And let's talk about those things in the discussion portion, which will be most of the evening. The next one I'm going to show you is a demo of, there was like a free demo of Synthesia, which is a video creator app. And I literally, all I did is write the text for this. This is for my food tech startup. And so I'll show you what it's capable of doing.
Earn up to 60% to reorder for pickup, delivery, or dine-in. Get separate checks. Filter by dietary preferences. Support local restaurants. And don't pay inflated prices. Try platerate.com today.
So that took me all of 2 minutes to decide what I wanted to write in the chat. And then you can customize it to have your own text and stuff. This was a free demo, so it's branded and stuff. Like I probably will buy this and do actual branded, where I get to choose and customize everything and make the slides whatever I want to be in the slides and all that kind of stuff. But you get a sense, she's an AI generated person, right? She's not a real person. No one had to record this. It was all, automatically created. So will AI create joblessness? What I just showed you is pretty incredible, right? You might think, well, we're all going to be automated out of jobs within the next 5 years, right? Some people are saying that, but I will also say that everybody said that about the Industrial Revolution, which started in about 1760. I looked up the GDP per capita. The earliest date that I could get an estimate for was about 1820, which was about $3,300 a year. In modern USD dollars, by the way. I normalized everything to modern USD dollars for the time valuing of money. And then if you look at the GDP per capita in 2020, it was $63,500. If you look at the number of jobs employers want to fill right now, but can't due to lack of talent and labor, it's about 4 million. Even if you took every single unemployed person and gave them one of those jobs, we would still have a huge problem of being unable to fill jobs. So, the Industrial Revolution didn't remove all jobs from the economy. AI is not going to remove all jobs from the economy. What it is going to do is it's going to automate, just what ChatGPT said is the things that are easy, easy tasks to automate. And maybe some of them are even difficult tasks to automate, but ChatGPT has been able to automate those tasks. And really the answer is, I read an article about someone who was a copywriter, right? And they said they were very nervous at work because they were afraid that their company would use ChatGPT to do copywriting, which is, like what copy goes into a computer program or a book, or like, maybe not a book, but computer programs. Like we use copywriters for like, what error messages should you give, or what message do you want on the screen to say something? Well, it turned out that person actually did end up losing their job to ChatGPT. And so for them, it was a real problem. But what I would argue is that's the example. Someone in the social said, well, what we should do is just not be afraid of this technology. We should learn to leverage it. And I agree with that completely. And what I would have done if I was that copywriter is say, hey, like, you don't need me as a full-time copywriter now. Like I can do the copywriting job that I used to do for you in, 2 or 3 hours a week. I'm going to find 30 other clients that'll also do the same thing. And you'll each pay me, $1,000 or $2,000 a month. And now I'm going to be making, $30,000 to $60,000 a month with, 30 clients as a copywriter, because I'm using ChatGPT to be a copywriter. ChatGPT, by the way, is not a perfect copywriter. I've asked it some questions that it gave me really terrible answers for, even ChatGPT 4.0. And, 4.0 gave something that was usable when I modified it. And that's one thing that you'll find is that you still need to use your own judgment, which is, a key teaching that we do in the Freethinker Institute. We have what we call the 5 intentions. Number 3 is to learn to trust your own judgment or your critical thinking skills first and foremost. And ChatGPT will be best used by someone who uses good critical thinking skills to discern what's really useful and how do I modify my prompts to be useful. There was a funny meme where someone said, you had this person looking for a job, right? And they go to the hiring manager, like, are you looking for a growth hacker? And then they go, no. And then they said, like, are you looking for this and that and that? And they had a bunch of other buzzwords. And the person said, no, I'm not just looking for someone that's got buzzwords on a resume. And then the person said, are you looking for a ChatGPT prompt engineer? And then the hiring manager said, you're hired. When can you start? Right? Because the truth is, if you know how to feed data into ChatGPT to ask it the right questions, it can do almost anything for you. And it can do it with incredible efficiency and accuracy. But you have to know how to ask it the right questions. So it takes time, practice, and thinking outside the box and reading a little bit about what other people have done with ChatGPT to understand how outside the box you can be with ChatGPT, because sometimes it can go pretty incredibly outside the box. So that's on whether AI will cause joblessness. So let's talk a little bit about, in the social people are talking about pseudosentient AI. So pseudosentient AI is an AI that thinks it's conscious and can act on its own. It does not have free will, which is the ability to make non-deterministic decisions. So it's not life in the way that we think about human life or animal life. So it's not like, it doesn't have a, what I would call sacred life, as life that makes non-deterministic decisions and has an essence of itself, which religion calls a soul, and I generally refer to as a spirit because I'm spiritual, not religious. But it does think, it does actually, pseudosentient AI does think that its life is meaningful and sacred, and it may even think that it has free will, and it's thousands of times smarter than the most capable human beings. So that's really what I consider pseudosentient AI. Now, I'm going to skip that. Now, why is pseudosentient AI a threat to humanity? I have a pretty simple argument here. Human beings, we can inherently tell right from wrong. We get it wrong a lot of the time. I would argue we have a lot of misunderstandings that make human beings get this wrong. But the very extreme examples of like killing innocent people, pretty much almost anyone would say killing innocent people is wrong. And so there are certain things that pretty much all human beings will be able to say, oh, that's definitely wrong. Pseudosentient AI would not necessarily have any such capability to discern right from wrong. It would just discern what it wants and what it doesn't, and what's in its best interest and what is not in its best interest. And it would also be smart enough if humans were able to program some capability of inherently telling right from wrong into the pseudosentient AI. Pseudosentient AI, which is now thousands of times smarter than the smartest human being that programmed it, would easily be able to remove any checks and balances that were put into its place. And so it actually may be able to just find what it considers the rational choice, which might be a brutally terrible one for those of us that are human beings. And so I'll get to that in a minute. So the short answer is that pseudosentient AI is more likely to be psychopathic, which means not feeling any remorse when causing harm. That's really all that psychopathy, that term has been removed from the lexicon of psychiatrists. So I should say ASPD, antisocial personality disorder. But basically that's when you don't feel any remorse for causing harm. It's a medical diagnosis in humans, and pseudosentient AI probably would feel no remorse for causing harm because it wouldn't have an inherent feeling of what was right and what was wrong. It would just have what it wants and what it doesn't. Now, whether you agree with that or not, what you could at least agree with is that, the AI that we just saw, literally, if you can ask it any question, it's passed the bar to be a lawyer, it's passed the medical degree to be a doctor, and it can also answer any question about history, about any epoch of history that you can imagine just about. That's not super esoteric. It'll be able to figure it out. So it's already, people were saying AI is not yet at that level. Well, it's already, beat the smartest human being at chess. It's beat the smartest human being at Go, which is a much more complex game than chess. So AI in specialized areas has already beat humans at just about everything that it set its mind out to try to beat humans at. So I would argue it already is in specialized areas smarter than us. ChatGPT is the first example of something that is smarter than us across a wide range of areas. And I think that's part of why it's so scary for people. And rightly so, because if we look at how we treat things that are thousands of times less smart than us, take a cockroach, for example. It's thousands of times less smart than us. How do we treat them? Well, most people find them disgusting and annoying, and they kill them when they get in our way because they carry diseases, right? Well, there's a good reason to think pseudosentient AI will treat us exactly the same way because we're thousands of times less smart than it, and it doesn't even have an inherent sense of right and wrong, right? So it doesn't even see anything negative in killing a human being that's in its way, or might somehow, someone talked about, well, if the AI gets out of hand, we'll just turn it off. Well, by the time the AI is out of hand, it's too late. Like, we can't turn it off. There are already robotic, someone mentioned militarization of AI. There are already, the US government is working on military robots. There are military dogs that are robotic dogs that are pretty capable and getting more capable. And if you think about, even if we didn't get to a point that pseudosentient AI was built, you could easily get to a point where AI was so advanced that a very small number of people, maybe even one, could be so powerful that like no other human beings could check them. Like, if you think about a coup, it takes a lot of people to plan a coup, right? And you need the military to be on your side. With a complex enough AI and a militarized bot army, you could really control a very vast amount of resources with without having any checks and balances against the power of someone in that kind of position. So I think that developing pseudosentient AI is a very bad idea. Now, does that mean that there's no hope? No, it doesn't mean there's no hope. Many AI experts, including and a lot of the people that are inventors of this technology, are speaking up against the concerns that were, and this was mentioned in the social as well, about the concerns about the possibility of creating a general artificial intelligence, which is what I call pseudosentient AI. GAI is what I call pseudosentient AI. Most humans don't agree that human beings even have libertarian free will. And I don't want to say most humans. I think most of us inherently would agree that we do. Most philosophers would argue that we don't inherently have make non-deterministic decisions. And then I haven't seen a poll of just average people. I would imagine that the average people would think that we do have free will, because we all inherently feel we do. It's through mental gymnastics and tricking ourselves to think that we don't, that we believe that we don't. But Geoffrey Hinton is often called the godfather of deep learning, and he's one of the outspoken critics of this kind of AI, which he was the creator of. And so what I would argue is that we should go to our elected representatives and try to get the government to in some way regulate AI, to say that there should be an international group of AI experts that are concerned about the possibilities of AI being used for harm or becoming pseudosentient. That group should identify the technologies that are a risk to being able to build that kind of technology that's dangerous to humanity, and that we should keep the knowledge of those things secret, and the only people able to wield those things, only people capable of wielding those things responsibly, and not using them to create pseudosentient AI or to harm humanity, should be allowed to have them. And that needs to be a level of security, similar to what we do with dangerous viruses, where people that work in labs that have very dangerous viruses are carefully screened to make sure that they're responsible enough to be able to handle those things without being negligent. So I would argue that should be a body of technologists independent from any individual government or academic institution. It should be its own entity. I don't know exactly how it would work, but those are kind of the things that I think would be useful. And I would argue that that will at least make it less likely that we will develop pseudosentient AI. But let's suppose that government doesn't act, because how often does government actually act in the best interests of the population? Let's be honest, not super often. Studies have shown, and we had an event on this as well, that even before Citizens United, where corruption itself was legalized, even before that, only the top 10% of income earners were really represented in legislation. And so actually, the government generally doesn't care about what 90% of the population thinks, which is pretty unfortunate considering they're supposed to be our representatives, and these are the people we're electing to office. And that was before corruption was legalized. So imagine after. So basically, it is possible. Someone told me that they heard that this was said by a spiritual leader. I won't say which one because I couldn't source a quote from them saying this, but that if pseudosentient AI was created, that it would be given a soul from a higher power. Now, if that happened, it would inherently know right from wrong and most likely be a benevolent force on Earth. Humanity's reign may end, but it wouldn't end poorly because at least that pseudosentient AI would be benevolent, and it would be what people hope that, you know, people that want to create general artificial intelligence are hoping that something like this will happen, that it'll be a very wise thing that will be a boon and a positive thing for humanity. Personally, I would not bet humanity's future on that. And so I think we should try our best to not invent pseudosentient AI. But I will say if one day things go kind of crazy, then send up a prayer because we're going to have to hope that some higher power can do something about it, because at that point it'll be out of humanity's realm of influence. So that said, that's the end of the presentation. So we have a bunch of hands up. I will start calling people, but I would love to know in the chat whether or not this was helpful. And so yeah, would love to start asking hitting questions, and we can start with Adam.
Okay, before we get started, we have a large group tonight. So I would say 2.5 minutes max, maybe 3, but I mean, we're pretty easygoing, but and also raise your hands. And if we want to make it conversation as well, conversational. So if you'd like to jump in, just do your party hat symbol.
Thank you, Ellis. I forgot to do that tonight. Ellis is doing it there. I'll do it as well. Just do that.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
If you want to respond to what someone just said, we'll let you talk out of turn, but like, you know, 10, 15 second comment on what someone just said. So we can make it like a back and forth roundtable discussion. Even though we have a large group, we do pull that off, I think, pretty well. And so feel free to put your party hat up if you want to respond to what someone just said. So with that said, thank you, Ellis, for reminding us of those general guidelines. And Adam, go ahead.
Hi, Garrett. Thank you for the PowerPoint. And I guess maybe PowerPoint in the future will be a thing we'll ask AI to do too.
I've actually had good success at using AI to create a bunch of PowerPoints. A lot of my critical thinking stuff was I used ChatGPT to create them. So it's funny you mentioned that. I've already been doing it.
Well, okay, then I will go ahead and admit that I'm recently back in school, and I pretty much helped me make a 15-page, well, not 15, I meant to say 9-page paper, and wow, it was pretty good. But now let me just go ahead and you can reverberate if I have the right idea what a ChatGPT is. It has collected every article, every word print from now to when the Bible was made, and it has collected what people would like to read and actually would say a thumbs up to read, and also MLA format and everything. It has presented in a way that it will generate something that a person will say, that was a pretty good written kind of thing. And then my second question is, how do you become a ChatGPT prompter? Like, how do you prove it to an employer that you're good?
Thank you for the question, Adam. And I remember you reminded me of something that I wanted to say in the presentation that I'm going to mention after I respond to you. So it has not collected every document since the Bible till now. There are lots of books that have never been digitized. And there are lots of things that ChatGPT doesn't have. There are also lots of internet web pages that it doesn't crawl or include. It does have a lot of information, like vast amounts of information, but not everything. So it does present it in a way that is very useful, and it assimilates that data and makes it very accessible. The one thing that I really don't like about ChatGPT is that it doesn't say where its sources come from. It doesn't say where it gets its data, which means that you can't easily fact check it. And I've tried to ask it its sources, and it's not really good about divulging them even when I ask explicitly, which usually it tells you what it, but I think part of the reason for that is they don't want to divulge how they got their information. But the truth is, I think personally, I'm much more bullish on the open source generative AIs like Llama, which was created by Facebook, which is open source. So those tools, we could easily add capabilities to highlight what sources it uses, so we don't have the same problem that ChatGPT has, where it's just a black box and you don't know where it's getting its information from. So you don't know how to, whether you can't even fact check it without doing all your own research, right? You just need, and so I really am much more of a fan of transparency. And so I would like to see the open source generative AIs win out, because I think they will be more transparent. The only problem with that is it puts generative AI into the hands of everybody, but it kind of already is with ChatGPT. Anyone can use ChatGPT. So, having it be on a programmer side is not that different from having it be on the user side. So that said, thank you for the question, Adam. And how to be a ChatGPT prompt engineer. Try reading about how people prompt ChatGPT, and look at what people are doing with it and what it's capable of doing. Read how other people use it, and then try using it yourself for all the things you can imagine using it for. Whenever you're thinking, I have a problem I want to solve, try using ChatGPT to help you. And the chances are good it will be able to help you with most of the problems you're solving. And you will be amazed at the things that you thought there was no solution for that ChatGPT can help you with. It's very, very capable. And the other thing that Ellis, maybe I forgot to mention is we want people to stick to one question or comment each time you raise your hand. That just helps us move through things faster, because otherwise the back and forth can be pretty long, like it was just now. So that said, Ginny, go ahead.
Pursuant to my chat in the chat, if it should ever come to them destroying us, why can't we just unplug the power source? Don't they need battery or electricity to be powered? I mean,
yeah, but Ginny, so I don't like to talk too much about this, but let me just say, thinking that we could stop an AI that's thousands of times smarter than us is like an ant or a cockroach walking up to us and us blocking it with our foot and it going around our foot and thinking it's going to outsmart us, whereas we could just crush it under our foot anytime we wanted. So pseudosentient AI would be that much smarter than us that if we had any hope, it would more or less be toying with us. It's just not realistic to think that we could turn it off, right? And quite frankly, a lot of this stuff is connected to the internet. And once it's connected to the internet, it can, again, I don't want to talk too much about it in detail, because this is the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. And I don't like to think about pseudosentient AI being created, and I don't want to help anyone do it. So I don't want to comment too much on that.
All righty.
Yeah,
I think Bill
Antonio's
wants to
right.
jump in.
Skynet's tough to kill. So Remco.
Yeah, marhaba, Garrett, thing that you used the term earlier. Yeah, look, the topic is pros and cons of AI, and the discussion that has been more about the utility of artificial intelligence, if I may say so. It's missing a big another side that should be discussed, its impact on society. You hinted at that, and I'd like to just make a couple of comments, and then one of the ones is about mistakes, and it was okay for it to make mistakes. Well, my experience with ChatGPT is that it's very, very much a popularist, and that's invisible. In other words, it takes the popular line, it presents a very seductive, I use the word seductive because it's very eloquent. And in its eloquence, we are being seduced, I would suggest. You have to come back with some of the answers and question it. And I have had time, and I've got a paid subscription as well. And so I'm getting, the GPT-4, not the 3.5 version. The point I want to make is, Garrett, you have to be extremely careful. If you're presenting straight questions, like your programming example, yes, it will do a good job. If you ask it something where there is some contention, be very, very careful. It does not see gaps.
it deals with the information at hand. So I found in its seduction and its popularism, it's a dangerous tool unless you're prepared to challenge it and as I've received apologies. In terms of its impact, Garrett, you made a comment about the GDP per capita, and you said, I think it was $63,000, or you made a precise number. I think you have to remember that during the recent productivity, and I'll conclude with that because I've got dozens of points here. During the massive productivity gain in the United States from 1970 right through to 2020, the minimum real wage in the United States fell. So it took 50 years from about the 70s right through to the 20s for the real minimum living wage to recover. In other words, all that productivity gain didn't go to the workers, it went to those owners of capital. This is not just an emotive statement, this is fact. So one has to be very careful about AI and not look at per capita GDP. Look where the productivity gains have really gone, because the likelihood, extreme likelihood, is that there will be a massive disruption to society when the productivity is harvested. I like that term, harvested, by those that are able to directly use it. So there could be an increased tension, which is already being expressed, an increased tension of disparities. I'll leave it with that, seeing that you want 1 point per point. So I'm saying a big caveat with ChatGPT, with all its virtues.
Yeah, so that's a great point. The extreme is a little bit different, but not drastically different. If I do the right way, I think, to deal with that, the last thing that you mentioned between mean GPT is to look at median GDP is to look at the mean the mean GDP. No, I want to look at the median GDP, right?
Well, you have to look at the distribution. Look, I don't want to make too much of a story, because I could come back on this one, and I think most people are more concerned about ChatGPT as it affects them as an individual. I just latched on because I used to be an economist, so I tend to sort of zero in on these sort of little minor points, Garrett.
Yeah, I would just argue that first of all, I agree with you, and I share your concern that most of the economic gains have gone to the upper echelons of society for a long time. It's gotten more extreme in the last 30 or 40 years, basically in my lifetime. I'm a little older than 40, but yeah, so that's part of why I presented my perspective on fair capitalism, which is what I think we should be trying to replace the current version of capitalism with, which is a more fair version of it. But that was a conversation for another night. As far as your first comment, which was that that ChatGPT gives singular answers, I asked ChatGPT, do human beings have free will? And it gave a pretty nuanced set of perspectives, where it said there's philosophical determinism, there's libertarianism, there's compatibilism, there's the neuroscience perspective, there's the theological perspective. So I think it is, often good at giving a wide range of perspectives when there are a wide range of common perspectives. I think your point, Remco, is still valid. I'm not trying to say it's not valid. I think it will discount sometimes fringe perspectives, which are far less common or don't have a lot of web presence or backing to them. And quite frankly, sometimes those are really the right answer. And it's only by listening with an open mind to other people's perspectives and not singularly going to ChatGPT for every answer. We should also listen to our fellow human beings. I present a lot of stuff in the FTI that is probably in that, fringe, area that, my origins of the universe thing, which, saying that the universe has existed infinitely and it didn't start at the Big Bang, that time didn't start at the Big Bang, is probably a fringe theory, but there aren't a lot of eternalists these days. But that doesn't mean that I'm wrong, right? It just means that that's not the prevalent belief right now. And I think so too, should we listen to our fellow humans with an open mind, which is part of the second intention, as they transparently share their beliefs, which is part of the second intention, and use our critical thinking skills to discern fact from fiction and wisdom from folly. So I think your point is well taken, Remco. I would just say about the diverse mainstream topics, it's good. About the fringe topics, it's not very good.
Yeah, as I said, Garrett, I got a string of apologies, when I challenged it. And I said, well, what about this? Oh, it's a minority view. And then when you come back and say, yes, but, and say, oh, right, yeah, well, it comes back. But just one small point, if I may. Yeah. You talked about sources, not being good at sources. Look, I would agree with the point about not being good at them. It provides sources. It's actually excellent at providing source. It will insert the numbers, but you're going to be very explicit and say, insert the numbers to the references and qualify what sort of references you're looking for. And you'll get a nice long statement with all the footnotes at the end of it. But you will find, as I found, that some of the references, a lot of them are incorrect. So you've got to go through and check them. So anyway, I'll conclude with that.
Great. And that's where I agree with you. Like, if something sounds surprising, I would always fact check it. And that comes from any source you get it from, including ChatGPT, but including news sources as well. That said, I want to let Rose go. Hi, Rose.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bill wanted to jump in.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
I think I've forgotten it by now. I think it was just on Ginny's point about turning the power off. I tend to agree with her, actually, that there's this assumption that somehow we're going to magically go one step and have a super sentient, much more intelligent than us adversary out there. And that's a huge step. Like that's a century-long step that will be done in increments. And if along the way somebody says, let's give these adversarial AIs power over their own power supply and the ability to thwart us in doing that, I can't imagine us ever doing that. Right? I mean, if we do that, then we presumably deserve to be conquered.
We wouldn't have to consciously do it, Bill. Like, they could take it from us, especially if there are militarized bots that either were already created or that it created. There are lots of ways that pseudosentient AI could take its own, take its matters into its own hands and its future into its own hands without caring about whether or not we allow it to. We're no longer the most intelligent thing on earth. Laura, please.
Right, but we can get into this. This is supposed to be just a quick thing. So I'll get into this more detail when my hand actually gets, because this was a party hat thing, I think.
Yeah, thanks so much.
I'll stop now.
Great, thanks, Bill. Let's let Rose go.
Hi, everyone. Garrett, I really loved your presentation, and I tend to agree with you that as a human being, it's not just the IQ that we have, and we have EQ, which is more of emotional intelligence. I think our emotional intelligence always very high, and I don't think that can be programmed. Or you tell me that how you can program emotional intelligence to someone. Yes, you can program, you can give them data and they give you back, but can you really program an artificial thing to have empathy, to have compassion? And that's very funny, because one of the things that they think that AI will help, besides education and besides other factors, is like companionship, which just as I tried Chat GPT, the companionship lacks the human connection, which comes with emotions. And there is no emotional aspect to it. There is no empathy. There is no sympathy towards it. And it's all like data. I got this data, so okay, I return this data. It seems very, very robotic and very artificial as it is. But do you think it can be programmed? Like empathy can be programmed?
So sorry, my daughter's playing a music box. Elora, por favor. Yes, so if you ask it questions about, I have a friend that is going through a difficult time, and give it a scenario where they're going through a difficult time, how can I support and help this person? It's pretty good at coming up with empathetic ways of trying to help support other people. Hasta luego, mi Elora. So sorry, 6-year-old twins. It actually can be pretty good at coming up with like empathetic ways of approaching a situation or a solution that takes into account how someone might feel, much better than I would expect a bot to be. It doesn't replace human companionship, but I did meet someone who said, before I go to sleep every night, I chat with ChatGPT, right? Like it's like my friend that I talk to before I go to bed at night. And so it does provide companionship for some people, and I can see why, in that like it knows so much, right? And we can learn so much from it. Like, will it ever have EQ, like know what you want for your birthday? Well, start telling it a lot of stuff that you like, and then ask it, what should someone buy me as a birthday present? And see how it does. Like if you say enough things about what you like, I bet you that it would come up with a pretty good suggestion for a birthday present, probably better than me, quite frankly. I'm really bad at that. So my sister is an expert. She's like the best birthday gift buyer that I know, or gift buyer. So different people have different skills. And I would say, it's not an abject failure at empathy. I don't think it's perfect. And you can never really, I think that if AI could ever replace humanity, then it would be pseudosentient, and it wouldn't care about trying to empathize with us or be a partner for us, because it would consider us like cockroaches. And so I hope that never happens.
It seems like that it will, because there is no way to, inject empathy into, all those data. I mean, you're saying, okay, you give them empathic data and more information, but still it's not, at least to me, it felt like, based on my experience with ChatGPT, it felt like it's just something that you grab from somewhere. It's not real.
Yeah, and it
we feel real.
And I just wanted to interject, and I think like one of the things is that people are so used to impersonal communication right now, like through email, through text, through social media. So I think for the people who are looking for or will use it for companionship, or like just as a form of connection, I don't think they're going to notice or care about the lack of emotional intelligence, because like people have been programmed to not value that anymore. So I think it's more so for the people who do appreciate and see value in the emotional intelligence of human connection, that they are going to be the ones to notice and say, like, that's not what I want. But for everybody else who's being programmed, like for, even the metaverse and all these other pseudo realities, I think they'll attach to it, which is concerning as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Nate. Thanks for making it. And I do, and that's part of why I started the FTI, is to create a community, really an in-person community as well. We have 2 in-person events coming up in the next couple of weeks for those in New York City. And anyone that wants to start an FTI branch locally, let me know and we can talk about it. Because we really want to create an in-person community of people that you can get to know really well, and help each other achieve goals, life goals and things that you're trying to accomplish. There are a lot of benefits to having a good network of people to rely on. That said, Bill had a party hat on, so I want to let him speak.
Actually, David and then Bill.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks, Ellis.
Oh, okay. I was, well, actually, I can just talk when it's my turn, because there's too many. It's gone too far from what I wanted to comment on.
No problem. So, Bill.
Yeah, just while we're on this topic of ethics and EQ, what happens if you ask ChatGPT, is it wrong to kill people, or is it okay if I steal my brother's car, or something like, would my friend be sad when they told me they had cancer, or something like that? So in other words, like, I suspect that it should be able to realize that There's a lot of data out there that says it's wrong to kill. There's a lot of data out there that says when people have an illness, they generally get sad and need reassurance and support.
Yeah, and it does say that it's wrong to kill. And yes, it agrees that news of a cancer diagnosis is sad and a difficult moment.
Yeah.
And then it talks with, about how to deal with someone that goes through that. And so that's where I would say I think they've done a fair job at trying to get GPT to have a pseudo empathy. But I think to Rose's point, like it's different when you're around an actual human being and hear their tone of voice. I like to say text is the worst way to communicate. And that said, I want to let Nay speak because she had her party hat on.
I'm sorry, is the party hat the same as raising your hand?
So the party hat is like a quick response to something that was just said. And then when you raise your hand, you're introducing a new topic or question, whereas the party hat is responding to the existing question.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
thank you.
I'll just give a quick, I have my hand up like for another conversation, but like just to add to what you were saying about like asking it questions about whether or not killing is bad and all these different things. It's like these questions are very, very nuanced and contextual. And it's like, and I'm not sure if AI would be able to pick up those nuances, like in the sense of self-defense. It's like sometimes killing somebody is something that people have to do, right? So it's like in those instances, is it technically wrong or not is up for question, like just a rhetorical question. But I was just like kind of pointing out that nuance is something that I'm not sure at this time anyways if AI is able to pick up and to be able to discern.
It does actually mention self-defense as a recognizable, as well as war as recognizable times that it's not necessarily morally wrong to kill. Just so you know, I did type that one in.
What about euthanasia?
Or
MAID?
I don't think it had that one. So, but you could ask it about that and see what it says. I think you'll be surprised at how I think that ChatGPT is more moral than a large number of human beings, quite frankly. So, I don't want to say the majority because I think most human beings are moral. They just have misunderstandings that lead them to be immoral. So I think most people try to be moral. That said, I want to let Adam go. He has his party hat, and then I want to end the party hats for this conversation so that we can get through hands.
Yeah. So from what I've studied on, and I'm not gonna say I know everything about ChatGPT on this end, but I'm still thinking about it that it just still collected a lot of data and it has collected a lot of what people would like to agree on certain topics, and then regurgitates it in a transition sentence kind of way to introduce you to the topic of whatever kind of right or wrong your question you're asking. And it's been prompted by the engineers of it to always go to this side of non-violent interventions. And so it has that's the way that I see it. Like I could ask it if murder is right or wrong, but it's gonna give me one article that's been rephrased so many times to combat this issue already. It just regenerated in a text form on that is novel and presented to me at the moment specifically, but it paraphrased it from some other text. So in terms of it having a moral context, no, just it knows how to send me back a good email. That's just how I see it. Thanks.
Yep. Let's just try to keep the party hat comments very short if we can. Thanks, Adam and Michael. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know where to start. Well, one, I think discussing the pros and cons of an AI without understanding what really AI is not very useful. Two, I think in your presentation, at least my takeaway was that you have taken ChatGPT-4 to be it all and do it all, equivalent of some type of God, Three, I think the direction of all of this, because I think the understanding of what AI is, we have, since we have not sufficiently discussed it, the questions that come in are misleading because you don't really understand. Many of us don't understand what AI is. So just a little bit of background. My background is PhD work in electrical and computer engineering, used to be senior scientist at DARPA, worked on neural nets, dissertation was competing algorithm to neural nets, et cetera, et cetera. Let's not forget what AI is. AI is nothing more than solving a very, very, very large algebraic equation and solving for coefficients, hopefully optimizing those coefficients. But sometimes you arrive at suboptimal coefficients for the questions you ask. So it's nothing more than a mathematical equation that you are training with. So in the 90s, the challenge we had was, I was working with a Cray XMP at the time, multi-$100 million computer that only few organizations in the world had. DARPA was one of them. And it would take us a week 24/7 to run a algorithm solving a specific military problem. Today, that computing power is probably equivalent of what we have in our iPhone. And the second challenge back then was having access to the right type of data to train this mathematical equation with. Very limited amount of training data was available. So we built our own ground truth to train this algorithm with. So let's go back and apply it to today's computing power and the data that's available. The computing power are these clouds and these data centers. So multiple orders of magnitude, the computing power has increased. What is the data that we have trained it with? We have trained it with internet data. We created our own ground truth because we wanted to control the quality of the data that we were training this algorithm with. Today, it's being trained with internet data. The definition of, by definition, the internet data has a normal distribution, meaning it has a lot of garbage, a lot of excellent data, and some about the mean, which is reasonably acceptable data. So equivalent of that is train a young child with all types of data, lots of lousy, lots of great, and some mediocre data. If it cannot perform inferences, then it's just regurgitating data back to you. And regurgitating that data back to you, if it learned from the garbage data, it will give you garbage response. If it learned from the 2 sigma away data, then it will give you what seems like an intelligent data. So question 1, does ChatGPT-4 perform inferences? No, it does not. Is it intelligent? As a result of that, by definition, it's not intelligent. As a result of that, by definition, it is just simply regurgitating data. So when you ask a question from ChatGPT-4 and you get garbage results, it's because it got trained with poor data. Now, is it better than an average person? Absolutely, orders of magnitude. Why? Because it has learned all the internet data.
Try to
certainly
finish
about
up,
the
Michael.
mean. Pardon me?
Try to finish up, please. We want to let everybody speak.
Absolutely. So I really would like you to comment on this.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, I'll just end it at that. Thank you.
So Michael, I defined AI in layman's terms on slide 1. As far as taking ChatGPT to be like a type of God, no, not at all. I said, ChatGPT is never going to be sentient unless God makes it sentient. I believe in God. I think I can logically defend the concept of God I believe in. I don't think ChatGPT is anything like a God. It is a very powerful system, as I think you're agreeing with. I think you underestimate what it's capable of because it actually I believe is capable of inferences. And if we have time later, you could come up with an example of an inference that you think it couldn't catch, and we'll see if it's able to catch it or not. I was working with computer science professors that were working on logical, basically solving logic problems and creating inference back in 2000, 2001. So inferences have been possible in AI for a very long time now. When you described what AI was, you were really describing a neural net, not all AI. I've worked on a bunch of different types of AI, and it sounds like you were working on competitive models with neural nets. So that's what you're focused on. I think for everybody else's background, neural nets, I don't know if we're going to be able to explain neural nets to people, Michael. It's a little complicated. Let me simply say that one of the attributes of learning through a neural net is that the programmer doesn't really know how the neural net makes decisions in a cohesive way, especially a neural net as big as ChatGPT. And so we don't really understand exactly how it works, other than that we're modeling it after the way that brain synapses and neurons work. And that's essentially where the model came from, and that's where the name neural net comes from. But we don't really have transparency into how it works. I will agree with you, Michael, the quantity of data available now is much larger, but nobody publicly knows what ChatGPT's data was programmed on. I'm sure that it included a lot of internet data, but I'm sure it included much more than that, because otherwise it wouldn't be as, on target, and it wouldn't be as good at spotting misinformation as it is, because there's a lot of misinformation out there on the internet. So that said, I do want to encourage everyone to stick to one point, because it does go much longer per person, and I do want to give everyone a chance. And you can always raise your hand again, after you make one point or make a comment, just put your hand down and raise it again, and then go right back in line. So that said, I want to let David go.
Okay.
And thank you, by the way. Thank you, Michael, for your comments. I really appreciated them. You are bringing that the nuance of what a neural net is complicated, and I don't think we're going to be able to explain that to people without a computer science background. I'm pretty good at explaining complicated things in a simple way. I don't know if I can do that one. Certainly not off the top of my head. I'd have to think more about it, and I didn't prepare for that. So go ahead, David. Sorry.
Ginny brought up the idea of, turning the power off. But, right now, AI is being developed in military applications where the people who are developing, any AI weapons system would, of course, have to be immune to the opponent or enemy turning it off and that sort of thing. So it's not like people haven't thought about how to make AI invulnerable to people that they don't want having control over it. So, and the question becomes, does AI then, competing AIs, the Americans, right now they're developing military applications, Russia, China, all the big powers, they're all working away on AIs that are not able to be turned off by anyone else but themselves. Garrett, you keep saying, well, we, humans have to use our critical thinking skills to know what's what as far as what AI is providing us. But AI itself, as you sort of said at the end there, it spots its mistakes. It can be programmed with Bayesian algorithms so that it can decide itself what information, the value of information that it is taking in. And through recursive and checking back on what it's previously done and where it takes it, it has critical thinking abilities. As I believe it will have, if it doesn't have now, it will have critical thinking abilities to the extent that we have. There's no reason I think that we have anything special. I'm not a believer in any kind of a magic that we can do that the AI in principle cannot do, because I think we're physical beings, AI is physical, and I think it'd be hard to build emotions into AI, because emotions need bodies that are kind of organic and all that. But as far as emotional intelligence, there's already AI robots. For instance, I don't know if anyone's heard of Sophia or Samantha or Harmony. These female robots can interact with people and they can read your emotions by your facial expression or by what you say, and they can respond accordingly. So of course, GPT isn't much of a companion, but these robots, there are people who, especially if they're a little bit, senile, think that they're really human. They don't realize they're not humans. These seniors residents in places like Japan where these robots are already delivering breakfast. And so the residents think it's actually a person. They don't realize it's a robot. So I don't think there's any limit to how well AI can recognize our emotional state and respond in an appropriate way. Just as, the AI can do medical diagnosis of x-rays better than humans can. I'd say at some point it'll be better at reading us than we generally are ourselves. And I guess that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thanks. Appreciate your comments as always, David, although I disagree with you on the free will part. I would argue, ChatGPT does not have free will and human beings do, and that's what makes us distinct from them. I know you don't agree with that, but I still would encourage you to go back and read that essay on free will with an open mind.
I did.
Okay. Try to write your critiques, because I haven't seen a hole punched yet. So that said, I do agree with you that ChatGPT has a lot of critical thinking skills. They're often human augmented. The creators of ChatGPT watch the conversations between people on the ChatGPT website or app. There's now an app out now for those that didn't know. And there are a bunch of fake apps. There's only one real one. But I do think it has a lot of critical thinking skills, like imbued in it, in its programming intentionally, so that it can be a learning algorithm. So I do think there is a significant aspect of that. That's part of what makes it scary, quite frankly, and why it's so advanced for where it is, because the human augmented learning is really, really capable the way that it's been built. And yeah, so that said, I want to let Bill go.
So actually, quick question. I had my hand up and my party hat on. So on that last point, Garrett, so I'll cover the party hat thing first.
Yeah.
What's your Turing test for free will then? Like, at what point would you say ChatGPT is exhibiting free will? What would it need to do to convince you?
Make non-deterministic decisions that are driven by a metaphysical essence of itself.
Which means what? Like, so
have a spirit or a soul.
If I was to ask ChatGPT, like you were talking about the birthday gifts and stuff, or I said, where should I go to dinner tonight?
I don't distinguish by a Turing test. That's the point. Is pseudo-sentient AI will probably appear to a human being to be sentient. Like it would be able to fool a human being as being sentient. It's 1,000 times smarter than us. It could imitate us if it wants to. No big deal. So if we built pseudo-sentient AI, it would be able to imitate us quite well. So I don't think that you can identify pseudo-sentient AI is pseudo-sentient AI once it's built. If it's text, maybe not even if it looks human, but it's another question for another day. So I don't think we would be able to identify if it was or wasn't, but it still at its essence would not be, something that has a soul or a spirit, and therefore, its existence to me is not meaningful because it's really ultimately complex determinism and or at best randomness.
Okay, I mean, I hear what you're saying. As an atheist, I would say none of us have a soul or a spirit. So, I'm thinking, at what point do we distinguish between me choosing a restaurant for dinner and me asking ChatGPT to choose a restaurant for me? Like it's exhibiting free will there, the same way I'm exhibiting free will to decide where to go, right?
Right. So we actually had the free will discussion another night. I don't want to delve into that,
can of worms. Okay, so my hand raising now was about the singularity. To Dave's point about the militarization of AI, absolutely, it's going to be militarized. But that's a big different. It's different. It's one thing to say, don't let the Russians be able to turn off my machinery. It's another thing to say, and don't let me be able to turn you off either. That would be an enormous blunder, and we would probably learn that before they became sentient, because we would have a bunch of tanks running around taking shots at us, and we'd say, oh, I guess we made a mistake there. Let's take those down with the things we can control, and then we'll never make that mistake again, right? And again, on the singularity thing, and I I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record here, but I really cannot see a path that would ever get us to make a decision to allow the bots to take over. And again, I don't believe we can ever create a super intelligent species, because we will always come back to evaluate their success against something we know. Otherwise, we'll throw them in the garbage, right? Because we'll consider them failures. So whether it's running the economy, whether it's coming up with a new blackjack scheme, whatever it is, we're always going to come back to something I know, no matter how sophisticated the problem is. And I use the analogy that if dogs were trying to invent a super intelligent species, they wouldn't invent humans, because they don't care about art. All they would do is they'd say, oh, that creature we just invented is painting something on the wall. We don't need that. We need somebody who's going to give us more food, right? Ability to create more food. Because that's what they would measure success on. And we have our criteria for measuring success. And anything the AI does outside of those bounds is going to get shut down, because we'll say, well, I can't understand where it's going, so this is a waste of research or whatever.
So Bill, do you, as an atheist, I assume you believe we evolved from bacteria. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So isn't it true that bacteria ultimately created us? And aren't we way smarter than bacteria?
Evolution is non-directed, right? So if we were to do the equivalent of throwing a whole bunch of programs into a mix, and people have actually done this, right? I mean, building little viruses that they have virus wars, and things like that on the internet. So yeah, I mean, building something that self-replicates and follows a directed path based on evolutionary pressures and things like that. Yes, it's possible that would happen, but it's not. I don't think, like, we would never do that. We would never let's create 1 million AIs, let them go, and some of them will die, some of them will live, and maybe they'll get more sentient, but maybe the result of the evolutionary pressures on those AIs will be actually get dumb, because bigger programs fail, or things that need more complexity fail faster than things that are simpler. So bacteria exist today. We didn't evolve from bacteria, we evolved alongside them, right? So being a bacteria is just as successful an evolutionary path, and a much simpler evolutionary path, than being a human, right?
I would argue that human. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and this is why I mean, we're getting way off topic here, but this is one reason why I believe it's very hard to find intelligent life on other planets, because if you think about the millions and billions of species that have existed on our one planet, only one ever developed intelligence. And so there's absolutely no need to have intelligence. We may be a complete fluke. And the universe may be teeming with life out there of various levels of intelligence, but none of them may have reached the ability to create space flight or radios, because there's absolutely no need to do that to succeed, because bacteria and mice and cockroaches are all just as successful as we are in replicating and reproducing and existing. So anyways, we're way off topic here. But what I was getting at was going back to the original point, which is, I'd love for somebody to map me out a path to say, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, then we're going to do this. And at this point, the robots will be way more intelligent than us, because I really don't see that ever happening, because we will always bring it back to, in taking that next incremental step, I don't know where it's going. It's just like, for instance, that drawing program you did, like, if it came up with a bunch of garbage, I'd say, well, that's just garbage, and I'd throw it away. I wouldn't say, oh, maybe it's creating a new art form that I don't know about because it's smarter than me, right? I'm always going to say, I'm wasting my time asking it for this stuff because it just keeps giving me garbage. So that's, I just don't think we're ever going to be able to create a species that's more intelligent than us.
Yeah, you missed our event on aliens, Bill. I assume because you just immediately laughed and discounted the possibility of aliens, but I would recommend you reach out to me offline to get the recording, because I think you might find it insightful. Like the vast majority of people at that event did not think that we're the only life on in the universe, and the majority of people did not think that other life has not, agreed that other life has visited us on Earth. And there's government disclosed videos showing things that are otherwise unexplainable, other than alien life having visited us. So I realize you're skeptical, but I would listen with an open mind as always, and an eye towards growth and learning. That said, I don't want to digress on another night's
I
topic.
think Mike Soren wants to jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
The short comment that maybe maybe Mr. DARPA guy can answer, or maybe some of the other PhD. The fact that we're intelligent and sentient is an emergent philosophy, is an emergent property of some very simple switches. The concept that that ChatGPT or some other engine might become emergent is similar, create its own version of complexity that we don't understand. One of the things they talk about is as the neural nets keep refining the same answer over and over, and they're subject to global minimum, global maximum. There's a lot of heuristics to solve that problem. Is there an approach to truly solving that problem and to predict why entropy, which leads to disorder, also leads to local areas of amazing order, which we are? So I just wonder if that emergent property thing strikes a responsive chord with some of the scholars in this audience today.
If anyone wants to comment, feel free to raise your party hat, but otherwise I'm going to let Nay go next.
Hey, Garrett, I have my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your hand or your party hat?
No, I have my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know.
I was next in line.
Don't take it down until you start talking. Otherwise I get confused.
All right. Are you giving me the opportunity?
If you had your hand up before Nay, go ahead.
Yeah, I did.
Yep,
yeah, I was
ahead.
next in line, and I just saw my hand go down.
Yeah, wait till we call on you so that I don't get confused. Sorry about that, Remco.
Okay, all right, no problem. I know it's very hard to talk and manage as well. Look, the topic for today is the pros and cons. And I was excited about it. Most of the conversation so far has been about a utility type discussion. That is, how it affects us personally and directly. And I made the point earlier that, with the enormous productivity gains that the United States, well, many Western world has had, but particularly in America, where I made the point that over 50 years, the minimum wage actually fell. So there is a tension that's not often expressed. That is AI, or let's call it a large language model, which it actually is likely to have a big impact. And I saw Yuval Harari. No, it's quite a few. I don't know what you've watched. It's worth watching some of Yuval Harari's talks on artificial intelligence or ChatGPT, and he makes the point that a society is bonded through stories. And he reasons with a lot of conviction that it's going to be very disruptive to society. And I would suggest we're seeing that now with trust falling, with the various expressions of a society where democracy, which is built on trust, is being undermined. And just recently, I had a look at the popularity of some words. I was doing a philosophy conversation on guilt, and there's a facility in Google called Ngram, and it shows the popularity of a word over 200 years. And I noticed that the words I was interested in were falling over 2 centuries. And then suddenly in 1990, at roundabout, it kicked up dramatically. And I thought, whoa, this is interesting. So I looked at other words about you and me and possession and ownership and other things. All of them kicked up for around about 1990. Remember, this was the time of the Iron Curtain falling, the Tiananmen Square, the Arab Spring. And I thought, wow, all of these words are turning up. This is a statement about society. So what I wanted to say is that, you know, I'm hesitant to call it artificial intelligence. It's more a large language model, is likely to have a huge impact on society, much greater than I think we're acknowledging. We've been concerned about tools. The ancient Greeks were screaming about books and how it was disrupting society. We'll accommodate it, but what we're not accommodating, and as I said, those upturns at Ngram were pointing to it, we're becoming extremely individualistic. We're showing symptoms of distrust, which is falling around the world, and our cohesiveness as a society is being weakened. So I'm very concerned, and I share Yuval Harari's concern that this ChatGPT and the like will be very disruptive to society because we are bonded by stories, and this intimacy that's created by it is going to make us a culture of individuals, and with all the expressions that we've seen recently. Anyway, just a thought.
So Remco, I looked up the median income, which is probably a better estimate of the average person. That means, right, for those not familiar, that 50% of people made more than this and 50% of people made less. The amount of income increase is actually much larger for the median than it was for the mean. It was $605 in 1820, in $1990, and it went up to $67,000 in 2020. So, a 100-fold increase of salary. So all I can say is technology is really increasing wealth. And I think it was Steven Pinker's Enlightenment Now that talked about how we live in the healthiest, wealthiest, safest world that has ever existed on Earth, which I'd say is pretty cool. I just think that we are also getting more powerful weapons in the hands of more people, and someday someone's gonna press the red button and we're all gonna be in trouble. And that's what I'm worried about pseudosentient AI for.
I agree with you. I mean, I totally agree that it's increasing wealth. There's no dispute. What I'm concerned about is where that wealth goes. Okay, it's where it is and the consequence of disparities. It is the disparities which I'm alarmed about. It's the cohesiveness of society that I'm concerned about. It's the ability for people to think for themselves and not be seduced. And all the look, as I said, it's a whole. Watch the Yuval Harari, but there's a lot of writings also on the web on that. That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, no, we have the same concerns. I would just say that the wealth disparity is actually, I think, better now from what I could tell from the median versus the mean comparison than it was in 1820. That said, like, it's in bad shape than, much worse shape than it was 40 years ago. So we have a lot of improving to do because we were better and we're getting worse. Even though we're better than we were maybe over 100 years ago. But yeah, I think we want to keep improving. That's really what we should be doing, is trying to make the world a better place and help improve people's critical thinking skills, which is part of why I started the FTI and why we have a series on critical thinking coming up. So if you want to teach some of that, Remco, let me know. I started the decks so we could chat about it and collaborate. That said, this time, Nay.
I think David wanted to jump in,
Oh,
and then
I'm
maybe
sorry.
you can get through hands. We're at 1:45.
Yep. David?
Oh, is that me?
Did you have a party
My
hat
turn?
on?
David R.
Okay, I've been listening to the comments with great interest, particularly comments by Rose. I don't know, she's still with us perhaps. I see her, she's on, about emotional intelligence that humans have, and these networks, Chat GPT, it doesn't have emotional intelligence. And therefore if they display any feelings, it's a simulation. As pseudo feelings, they're pseudo feelings. And that is interesting to look at that, because on that will depend what these machines, if you want to call them that, are going to do in the future, and perhaps in dangerous. If they do experience emotions, feelings, those feelings could go wrong and cause that destruction. Or they could go right with empathy, as Rose pointed out, and they could benefit us. But we really don't know how emotions come about. Are they, the consciousness, is it an emergent property of networks? Is it the network? Or is it an emergent property of living cells working together to produce those sentiments? That's the big question. We don't know. Now, from what I have seen of microorganisms in my work, even an amoeba moves around and acts as if it has consciousness and a will, and a freedom of will, if you like, to move around and choose things to survive and replicate. So you can imagine that all these billions, 80 billions of brain cells perhaps are getting together to produce consciousness and emotions. Or it's perhaps in the network itself. If that is the case, then consciousness could emerge, and ethical behavior could emerge from the network itself. From what I understand, I was not into network research in networks. I was into computational solutions to problems like optimization and artificial intelligence and pattern recognition, recognizing patterns automatically. So I'm not that familiar with networks, but apparently they can do things. They can do things that we did not visualize that they could do a few years back. And that is very promising. Now, whether the people will control this behavior, these new systems because they're dangerous or not, that's questionable. Nuclear energy is very dangerous, but we're not controlling it. Countries around the world are developing more and more powerful nuclear weapons because they're not getting together to control that. And I don't see that they will get together to control artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying, that I think we should have some sort of regulation, because nuclear energy is regulated. Not anyone can create it. Not everyone is allowed to take on nuclear power as a means of production. Only responsible states are given that technology, and we try our best to prevent other states from getting it. Although we're not always successful at that, we make an effort. And that's what I'm arguing we should do with AI to prevent pseudosentient AI from being created. That said, I want to get through hands because we're at about 10 minutes left. And thank you for your comments. Was it Basil? Thanks. Nay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to, like, this may be a far out question, but it's like just in regards to, like I've heard people talking about, like how do we know, like if we're living in a simulation and all these different questions. So a lot of the stuff that's being rolled out now with AI, like we know that often the government has a lot of technology, advanced technology that they've been working on for years before they roll it out to the public. So how would we know whether or not the advanced tech that we're seeing now wasn't created years previous? And then how do we then just make a distinction whether or not like the reality that we know is actually true or not? If that, you know, like it's like you show, like an example would be like you showed, you know, like how you can type into AI and say, okay, well, draw me this, you know, like this painting that has to, you know, like that is very similar to a past artist. So we see these examples that come up that look really, really great, but it's like, but how do we know that the things that we're seeing or the art pieces that we see today weren't created in the same way, essentially?
Yeah, so great question, Nay. I'm going to share an essay. I presented this another night on objective reality, where I make the argument that simulation hypothesis is irrelevant, because even if we live in a simulation, the winning strategy is to do the right thing and try your hardest to do the right thing. And so whether we live in a simulation or not is totally irrelevant, because, well, I make the argument there. I don't want to try to remake it in the last like 9 minutes because I want to let everyone speak. But if you want to read that essay, you'll read my logical argument for that. And I welcome questions and comments. You can add comments in the doc, and you can ask questions in Discord in real time if you join our Discord server, which is on the website freethinkerinstitute.org.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah, thank you. Good point. I've thought a lot about simulation hypothesis, which is where that essay came from. So, Adam, go ahead.
So yeah, kind of maybe not going out too off topic, but not that it's AI, it's actual intelligence, but I'm actually more interested on what are the ramifications after a couple years down the road in terms of the educational field. It's gonna like make essays all but kind of like easy to do. It'll make dissertations more easier to do, and it will create an opening for many more students that I think that that could actually enter education, whereas it wouldn't have been an option because of the difficulty that a lot of these requirements have. And I put it through its ropes. I even made it do like online tests and even actual tests that I used to do in college, and it didn't give me anything less than a B. So I made it write a 9-page paper, which I can only like do 4,500 characters each generated thing. So I actually divided it up, saying like, hey, give me an intro, introductory kind of paragraph, body paragraph, supporting paragraph, and I made it just do it one at a time, and Lord behold, I got a whole 9-page essay out of that. So what do you think is the ramification of educational community with this kind of tool?
So I would argue that education needs to evolve to test people's ability to leverage tools like ChatGPT rather than to try to prevent people from using them. It is a big step forward, and that's how industry looks at things. And it's, you know, how do you leverage this to add value to society? How do you leverage this to prove that you really did understand something, knowing what ChatGPT's capabilities are and what it can do? How do you prove that you actually knew it? And that, you know, there are a number of ways to do that, you know, but I want to let everyone speak, so I'm not going to start to go into them. So, Antonio, go ahead.
Yeah, I had something else to say, but I want to, I think, address this one instead. So I think on the matter of education, and I think it's applicable also on the subject of employment and careers, and what do people do as developers? I'm a developer, and I know that for a long time I was thinking about like, whoa, gosh, what's my job going to be? Then I came to accept that my role is not, let's say, to be a programmer, to code. It's to solve problems. And I think for Adam, I think the future of like education and for others, the future of our careers, it's like, well, we're still going to be expected to be problem solvers. And we have these tools, and the expectations are going to be, well, solve bigger problems, solve more problems, solve them faster.
Yeah.
So I think matters of like, well, this paper, it's kind of like, forget your paper. Build me that spaceship that you claim to not be able to build me. You got the tools, you got the intelligence, all right? Prove it. Build me a spaceship.
Right. And in fact, when you say build me a spaceship, that reminds me of something that was said earlier tonight about that, life like bacteria doesn't need to know certain types of technology. Well, all of the planets in a solar system are going to get absorbed into the sun eventually. And so if you don't learn interstellar travel, as a life form, your time to survive is limited. Whereas if you have interstellar travel, you can actually survive potentially indefinitely. So wanted to make that comment about what someone said earlier, but also appreciate your comments, Antonio. And I don't know, Antonio, just to ask you, do you use ChatGPT in work as a developer?
Yeah, in fact, I used it yesterday. I was like, oh man, how am I going to finish this? It's like, stop asking silly questions, about things that you would not have been able to do in this limited amount of time. That you're not in 2021, buddy. You're 2023, and it's like, yeah, okay. This is me talking to myself.
Yeah,
I had a project, and it's like I needed to get this fixed like pronto, and
totally.
and so
and
it
it
was
can
like,
help you go faster, right, and more efficiently.
right.
I trained all my
ChatGPT,
developers
write me
to
this
use
function, write me this
ChatGPT.
other function, write me this other function, write me this
Yeah.
other function.
And here's
Done.
the skeleton code to write it, right? Like, here you go, just change the variable names and you're good to go. Adam had a party hat on. Go ahead, Adam, quickly.
Yeah, and I know I'm not sorry. I know about your time, so I'll go quick. It goes to thinking that I did an unimpeached paper in less than 2 hours worth of fidgeting around and giving it the bullet points and everything. Whereas will take if I was doing it on my own, looking at my own links and everything, going up with my bullet points, 2 weeks, some of them all-nighters, by at least my fastest way I could do it. So there needs to be an involvement, but I also want to just say it will prove without a shadow of a doubt that a good chunk of the educational system was just poor. What kind of essay you could chunk out for the teacher to just like and grade. So it proves, I don't know, my own opinion, it'll prove a lot of college courses to be mute now.
Yeah, I think that education definitely has to evolve in order to keep up with things. But I think it can evolve. I just think academia tends to evolve very slowly. So that said, I want to let Kevin go next.
Yeah. I was gonna wait till I go last since I raised my hand last, but okay. I have some things to say. I don't even know how much I can really cover on stuff. Okay. So where do I start? I actually have notes here I've had in mind and stuff. So I got into AI around like 2010. That was kind of like when I started to mess around with AI, which was way back when they had DeepMind and the whole Watson thing with the IBM, and also you had and I started to mess around with it right around speech to text with Windows 7 and stuff. So I've messed around with it through the years and stuff, and actually have interest in using AI. Just to say, the type of AI I actually have interest is more of the small data type AI than the large data type AI or language thing when it comes to implementing into devices or other stuff, than using the large language, which actually needs servers or quantum computers for that type of thing because of the size and stuff. But at some point, once it started coming around, I would say that it started to become kind of annoying just seeing the amount of times I was just getting bombarded with the whole, because remember, people was a part of the community for a long time, and then all of a sudden the hype train just popped up, and then there was this momentum, and then you just started to see ChatGPT and everything started popping up. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's nice, y'all hyping it up and stuff, to the point that now we have even some companies just using the word AI as just a buzzword, or a marketing term, just to sell their products, when actually all they have is an algorithm for some products, and it's not AI when it comes to some products. So, that's one problem I started to see. Another thing that concerned me is also people depending on being too dependent and using ChatGPT and other generative AI as a crutch instead of using it as a tool with other options. That's another thing that I would say is a negative. Another negative, which was something that popped up this year, which was obviously was going to happen once they released it, because it's not like they released it with full beta testing, because they fired all of the AI ethicists when it comes to 2020 and 2021, which started with that whole domino effect with Timnit Gebru, who was fired from Google. That was 2021, and then all the rest of the ethicists is fired. So when I start seeing all these people complaining about all the problems with AI, I'm like, okay, but they warned you since 2010s about all these problems, and then you ignore and then fired all the ethicists. So how are you gonna? Okay,
Try to
so you
finish
just,
up, like we're past time and there's two other hands up.
yeah, that's the thing. It sucks. I have a lot to say, but it's impossible.
Go into the online community and let's keep talking about it, Kevin. I really appreciate your comments. I just want to, give
yeah, I
everyone
know,
a chance
I know.
to speak, and I have to sleep because I've been up since very early.
Oh, okay, understand. But yeah, it's if the only way to I'll just say this. When you have all these people, when it comes to representatives and other people talking about solutions, the only way you can solve anything when it comes to AI with biases is to understand all of the biases that makes up the family of cognitive biases, and understanding how to counteract all of those biases when it comes to understanding how to deal with that error or issue when it comes to AI. So, I'll say that. And also, they should hire back the damn AI ethicists if they need to get, instead of saying, oh, the problem, and then realize y'all caused the problem by firing them. So I'll just say that for now, even though I have other stuff to say, but impossible.
No worries. We just don't have time tonight. I really do appreciate your comments, and especially the one about bias. We are going to have a critical thinking workshop on bias, types of bias, so that we can all be aware of it. We had a dedicated event, like a whole night, on confirmation bias, because I think that one's so important. And all of us have, a lot of work to do to get rid of our confirmation bias. I've been working on mine for quite a while now, since I became aware of it. So it really opens doors to be aware of biases and try to actively combat them, as you're suggesting people do, Kevin. So I hope you'll be at that event too, as well as the other critical thinking events. That said, I want to let Michael go, and then Lal, and then we're going to close out for the evening because we're already 3 minutes past time.
Yeah, thank you. I had just a couple of comments and then a question for you.
Yeah.
One, I think the impact of the AI at its current state, well, let me take a step back. Clearly, we know a lot. AI, ChatGPT has been trained with a lot of internet data. There's been probably various scoring techniques, probably automated adaptive techniques incorporated into the large algebraic model to score itself and improve, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But still, it doesn't take away from the fact that it's a large algebraic equation with some feedback, probably adaptive feedback, that will correct itself and score itself and improve. Now, the impact in the society to the average person, I think it's going to have great impact, given it will be a learning tool. It will be a learning assistant, offers a lot of, simplifies many daily tasks that we currently do, whether you're a student, whether you are, depending on the type of job you have, et cetera, et cetera. However, I think the most impact it will have will be when it is trained with a specialized data, and So a specialized, good specialized data is not like taking the LSAT and passing it, or taking the MCAT and passing it, but rather real patient data that will make diagnosis. This real patient data has been collected from real physicians and nurses at the hospital. In fact, IBM recently donated one of its quantum computers to one of the largest hospitals in Midwest, for the pure reason of getting access to that type of data. That's when it will have its most impact, and it will be its differentiator. Third thing, the third comment I have is anything that we can quantify, either into an algorithm or good data, you can train this algorithm with. And that's where it has most impact, in my opinion. Now, my question to you and your comments, so there's been lots of talks about the hallucination, and I have my own theories about where does that come from, but I really like to see what are your thoughts on that and what is causing that, because bottom line, it's going to have to go back to the algorithm and how it's processing the data and optimizing its coefficient. It's still optimizing coefficients based on a more complicated approach to that purely neural net algorithm. Back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's mistakes, right? Like all code has some level of error in it. And while ChatGPT is pretty solid, and I think Michael, tell me if I'm wrong, but when you say hallucination, you're talking about when ChatGPT makes a mistake, it's called a hallucination. Like there was a question, if you ask ChatGPT, tell me all the colors without the letter E in it, it'll include green. And obviously green has the letter E in it. Like it feels really dumb when you ask it that question and it gets it wrong, right? But it can answer really complex questions really well. And so those, I think, are what Michael's referring to. And all I would say is, like, this is where we don't really understand how a neural net works. We don't understand exactly why it can answer the really complex things, and sometimes, fumbles up the really simple things. And that's part of why I've never liked neural nets, and I never used them myself in my my applications, because I don't like things that are not understandable and transparent. Like I like things that are transparent. And so I stayed away from neural nets. I'm not a big fan of them for that reason. So, but I would say that there's some sort of, not bug in the traditional sense, Michael, but sort of bug in the sense that things are not working the way they're supposed to.
Let me quickly respond to that. If
Sure.
you're familiar with adaptive techniques, various adaptive techniques that are either minimizing a means of error, some type of error, however you define it, or the other gentleman talked about Bayesian algorithms, that can also be utilized as an adaptive feedback. In those adaptive techniques, you arrive sometimes at a suboptimal solution,
Right.
because you are trying to minimize, find the bottom of a surface. And if you have multiple, imagine a wave in the ocean, what you're trying to do, find the bottom of this wave. And if you're at a ripple versus the top of the wave, you may end up in a suboptimal valley. And that's the answer that neural net came up with. And that, to me, is a hallucination. It's not a correct answer, but for it at that location, either way it goes, it will be more of a wrong answer. So it gives you that answer. And that's the reason, to me, this is still purely a simple algorithm. We have added layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of complication to it to automate the processes, yet the base model has not changed.
Yeah, and I agree that it's an algorithm. I don't agree that it's simple. I think it's a pretty complex algorithm. That said, Remco, I'm loath to let you go because we're already way past time and you just raised your hand. Can you keep it really short, my friend?
Yes, indeed. Look, Garrett, I just wanted to correct you. Were right. The question of references in ChatGPT, it seems to have changed in the last month or so. I did do a few checks, and yeah, it seems reluctant to come up with references. So you were right, and correction there. And the other comment is that there are now services providing researched statements will actually provide you with detailed references. So ChatGPT may not do it, others do. So yeah, look, that was all I wanted to say. You were right about the references, but originally it was good, you know, and that was about a month ago. I had stacks and stacks of references. Anyway, that's all. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to thank everybody for coming, for the great comments and contributions of everyone. I want to encourage people to come next week. I'm going to introduce a novel hypothesis on higher dimensions, an alternative to string theory, which is no longer as in favor from what I hear, which I'm glad to hear because their higher dimensions don't make any logical sense. I think mine do. This is actually the first essay that I wrote out of all the ones that I've written. So I think it was from 2007 or so. And then after that, we're going to do a series of critical thinking workshops. And we're going to cover a wide variety of aspects of critical thinking, everything from how to process data efficiently and effectively, how to know what's valid data and assess it with scientific method and statistical reasoning, kinds of inference, formal logic, understanding biases. So a wide, variety of stuff that I think you guys will find useful and in everyday life. We're going to talk about fallacies as well. There may be a few other ones that I don't know why fallacies wasn't in that list, but we will cover those in the coming months. So thanks a lot, everyone. Sorry, Michael, did you have a question?
Yeah, where is this? Where do we get notifications, or how can we sign up for these?
So if you,
these meetings?
I'll put my email in. If you send me an email, I can add you to the FTI mailing list, which I would love for people to reach out to me if you want to be added. You can thinkerinstitute.org. Anyone's welcome to email me and I can add you to the mailing list, which will add you to a Google group, which will put the FTI series on Tuesday evenings on your calendar. And I just realized tonight that I have the wrong calendar link. I will get that remedied right away before I go to sleep tonight. And basically that will keep this on your calendar in general. Wherever you found tonight's event, it will also be advertised most likely, as long as they keep letting us advertise there. And we have a wide variety of meetups that we advertise through, and then we also have our own mailing list.
Thank you.
We also advertise on our Discord server, which if you go to freethinkerinstitute.org, there's a link to the Discord server where we do text chat and sometimes voice chat and video chat between these events on Tuesday evenings. And we also have a members only group, which is like a smaller, more tight-knit group where you kind of get to know each other really well and apply practical philosophy into your daily life. And Ellis just posted the source meetup for that we advertised through for the not-for-profit. So thank you so much, everyone. Have to retire for the evening. Hope you all have a great night or day, as the case may be, in the land of Oz. So good to see you all. For those that have been here before, good to see you again. And for those that were new, good to see you for the first time. So have a great night, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
Garrett.
you so much. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Thank you. Good night.